Welcome to Kick Him in the Head, a podcast that takes an inside look at the world of mixed martial arts, featuring interviews from some of the top fighters from South Africa and around the world, with a focus on the EFC and UFC promotions. I'm your host, Yao. Join us as we delve deep into the techniques, strategies, and mindsets of these world-class athletes, learning from their experiences and getting insights into what it takes to succeed in the toughest sport on earth. Welcome to the Kick Him in the Head podcast. And as always, I have an absolutely jam-packed MMA episode for you. Today, I am doing a recap show on EFC116, which happened on the 8th of August, 2024, just last week. And, I say this all the time, but, what can I say? The EFC cards always deliver from the prelims all the way through to the main card, to the main event. And this event was absolutely no different. And I mean, look, let's just get straight into it. Let's talk about this. EFC 116. As you can see, we had a stacked card. Now, there's a few fights here that we didn't cover in our preview show. So definitely always listen to our preview show. It happens the Tuesday, the week of the fight. So this happened on the 6th of August last week. We did not cover these 4 fights because they were not on the World Sport Betting odds, nor were they on the EFC website. Those fights would be the fight between, on the main card, Nathaniel Kumana and Becky Ngobo, and then in the prelims, Emerson Pedro versus Lagana, and then Vandenberg Maglala and Bosco Yemba. So there was quite a few fights that came in, most of them the morning of the fights. So yeah, they were definitely added to the entire fight, and also the co-main event switched from being Insua versus Longwa to Lubaya versus Sekeletu. So there were quite a few changes that happened the day of the fight, but that did not take away from the amazing card that it was. Duplessis versus Michael, Luke Michael, Young Gun versus Jaco Duplessis was the main event. That was the title fight, the middleweight title bout between Jaco Duplessis and Luke Michael. Now, what I have to say about this fight is when we talk about champion spirit, when we talk about fighting at the highest level, wanting to fight, being hungry to fight, that's where this fight, I think, culminated in showing the hunger, not just from the winner, but also from the challenger, the other challenger, who was defeated. Now, in this fight, we all know by now the winner was the one and only young gun Luke Michael, who'd come back after defeat to JP Kruger. Devastating defeat. He's come back to reclaim the EFC middleweight title against Jaco Duplessis, and my goodness, what a fight. What an absolute fight. Slugfest. The guys, they went at it. And I think we spoke to Luke on the show just after the fight, and he gave us insight to how he felt leading up to the fight. The press conference, the weigh-ins, everything leading up to fight, and the fact that he was fighting for 5 rounds, and it showed. He had the champion mindset of fighting 5 rounds. Not that Jaco didn't, but Luke said, I'm going to go in, and you know what I'm going to do. I'm going to wrestle you, I'm going to take you down, I'm going to stand up, and I'm going to beat you. That's exactly what he did. And unfortunately for Jaco, he didn't have much of an answer. If you look at the scorecards, Luke took about 4 of those rounds. It was a great fight with all 5 rounds. And yes, I say champion, salute, Jaco, great fight. On to the next one. We have a few ideas about who you could be fighting next, who you should be fighting next to make the division very interesting, but we'll talk about that later in the show. But shout out to a great main event from EFC 116, Luke Michael, the new EFC 2-time middleweight champion. Then we go to the co-main event, co-main event between Ken, the Takeover Sekeletu, and Mr. Lubaya. How can I forget his name? Gosh, why am I suddenly so bad with names all of a sudden? Jean-Jacques, yes, JJ Lubaya. There we go. Jean-Jacques Lubaya. Now, this co-main event came as it wasn't supposed to be the co-main event. Actually, it was supposed to be Shadrack Nsua versus Kulikani Hlongwa as the co-main event. Then on the day of the fight, it changed to Sekeletu versus Lubaya. And if you look at the two fighters here. If you look at the stakes, the odds in this fight between the two, 9-0, 4-0, someone's O's got to go, as Khoso would say, Khoso Bilal Ramabo, EFC announcer, and someone's O went. This fight was absolutely fantastic. Great showcase of the featherweight division in the EFC. Ken Sekuletu took the fight. He won the fight. They went all 3 rounds. If we look at how Ken has finished all of his other fights, they were by finish. So for him to go all 3 rounds, it was a great fight, absolutely great fight. Jean-Jacques in the post-fight press conference said, "Listen, he got me. I didn't feel the same after the first round. My legs were gone, and he lost the fight. Now he's 9-1, but he will be back." And it was a great fight. Both guys really brought it. The skill was there, the power was there, the resilience was there. It was an absolutely amazing fight. That was the co-main event of EFC 116. Now, of all those fights we've just talked about, there's quite a few highlights that I have because, like I said, the EFC fights are always entertaining. There's always something interesting that comes out of it. And one fight I forgot to mention, shout out to Kelvin Smith, Strikes and Strangles on YouTube. You can follow them. I didn't talk about his fight last week when I did the preview show. I left out his fight with Siana Vilakazi. Now, the reason that's an absolute travesty is that fight was that fight. Joel Smith, the dog, he showed the dog in him, but also so did Siana Vilakazi. These two guys were fighting at a very, very high level, even though they were on the prelims. They had the skill, they had the resilience, they had the stamina, but in the end, Joel Smith took it. Real naked choke. He got the submission in the 3rd round, but it was an absolute fight all the way through. This fight was a fight to definitely look out for. If these two guys meet again somewhere in the main card in future, it's definitely going to be very, very good to see them going for the double, to see who is better, and maybe even a trilogy, because this fight is definitely one that I really enjoyed. Definitely really enjoyed that fight. Another fight I want to point out, very entertaining. The fastest knockout in the EFC light heavyweight division. Yes, I said it. The fastest knockout in the EFC light heavyweight division. As you can see there, we have Nico van der Berg on his back, on the floor, within 19 seconds. A 19-second KO, light heavyweight division, EFC 116. Absolutely phenomenal. Andy Madlala. Well, look, Tico went for a Superman punch in the first 10 seconds of the fight. Missed the Superman punch. Andile Madlala caught him. Check right hook. Actually, it was a check overhand right. It was a check overhand right. Put him on the ground. Didn't even have to finish him. Walk off finished. He was shocked. He couldn't believe he won. It was his first win. He'd just come down from heavyweight. And to win in that fashion, absolutely phenomenal. A scintillating win. We must point out that Andile is a big boy. He's a really, really big boy, coming down from heavyweight down to light heavyweight, now challenging the heavyweights, light heavyweights. And he's got this bicep that doesn't surprise me, that overhand right completely put Tico van der Berg on his ass. Now, shout out Wolfgang, shout out Wolfie in the chats. Listen to this. Thank you so much. 19-second KO. Yes, it was. Rosie, absolutely love you. Smash up the likes. Thank you so much at HeadKickPod on all platforms. You will find us on Instagram, Twitter, and here on YouTube all the time. Now, the other fights I want to talk about, yeah, I sound like Dana, is, let's take half a step back right there. So the other fights that I want to talk about, I don't have any pictures of them here, but if we have a quick look at the card, we had Alistair Kunene versus Jaco Shaper in the last fight. Ayanda Zwane, shout out to the power. Ayanda Zwane in the chats. Eyes on the featherweight co-main. Yes, definitely, Ayanda, because we know that you are coming for that title. You want that shot. Let's get it. Let's go. You're going to be up there again. But this time it was Ken to take over his chance, and let's see what he can do against the one and only. Well, no, Iga still has to fight before he would fight Ken. But that would be a good fight between you two, actually, for the number one contender, between you, Ayanda Zwane, and Ken the Takeover Sekeletu. Hmm. I like it a lot. But once again, shout out to Alistair Kunene. Alistair absolutely destroyed Schaefer, in a way that honestly his domination showed the learnings that he had from his first fight in the EFC, where he took a loss, but he came back. I can't even say stronger, but he came back smarter. He came back a fighter that knows what it means to take a fight to where you need to take it in order to win. Jesse tried his best, but Alistair was on top the entire fight. It was fantastic, his performance. So shout out to you, Alistair Kanene. On to the next one. We will be doing a special on him sometime in the near future. He's got an amazing story that I think everyone would love to hear. But yeah, shout out to Alistair Kanene. That's one other fight that was just phenomenal. So if you put money on him, let's go. You got that money. Now we are on something that, well, we've never done this one before. You guys haven't seen this before, but it is time. Fighter of the Week.
Fighter of the Week.
Now, my fight and my fighter of the week is Ken the Takeover Sekeletu. Yes, Ayanda, it is Ken this week. Why? Because that fight, Ken was tested. We'd never seen Ken tested before. He'd always come in, he'd smashed. If we've seen what he did against W Katikati, he'd always come in, he'd smash, and the fight's over. But now he got someone who had the right level of experience, right level of skill. Stylistically, it was a fantastic matchup. And as always, shout out to Ashley and Graham at the EFC, the matchmakers. They've just taken it to another level because they matched these guys up absolutely perfectly, not just for each other, but also within the context of the featherweight division at the EFC. And as you saw, Ayanda Zwane, the power, is looking to get into that mix against Ken, the Takeover Sekeletu, or whoever it is that would give him another title shot. Or a title shot, because he was in the featherweight Grand Prix. But this fight, for me, is that fight because these two guys just took it to the next level. They both showed why they should be fighting at the highest level. And Ken took it on point, but it was an absolutely fantastic fight. So that was definitely my fight of the night. Now, to talk about a few of the upcoming fights in the EFC, some very, very exciting fights. And I think we can now sort of dial back to talking about where I think within the middleweight picture we should be considering Shadrack Nsua and Jaco du Plessis. Now, if you watched EFC116, you would have seen Luke Michael facing off against Blamby Shadrack Nsua. We spoke to Luke 2 days after the fight, and he was absolutely elated by his win. Congratulations, champ. Congratulations, Luke, on winning the title. And he said he didn't expect them to face him off against Shadrack. So definitely go listen to the show. It is on our YouTube channel. He didn't expect him to face him off against Shadrack. Shadrack having just won, but having come off a loss. So he feels like Shadrack needs to do a little bit more to actually then earn the shot. And I think that's a very interesting consideration in terms of the middleweight title. How do we take care of the fact that Luke needs to fight someone who is at his level, of which Shadrack is next in line, but Luke as the champ does get to make a call. So maybe a fight to make could be Jaco du Plessis versus Shadrack Nsua for the #1 contendership. So maybe we can bring back Jaco du Plessis to say, listen, I saw what happened against Luke. Let me prove that I am better than I was. I'm now 4-1. Shadrack is now 5-1. Let's fight for this #1 contendership. Let's see how that fight would go. I think that would be a very interesting fight to make. Shout out to the Fight Week show at Fight Week show. Ola, definitely, he was supposed to be here but couldn't make it. Got had other commitments, but shout out to him. You will see us on the Dust Up and Shakedown tomorrow. Do tune in, everyone who is listening. Thank you, Ayanda. So I think this matchup needs to develop. I think Luke, his current record, I mean, he's over 10 fights in the EFC in his professional career. So, and as the champ, double champ, he gets to make the call. And I think his opinion would be Shadrach would need to fight someone else. And I think that would be a good fight to make. Shadrach versus Jacob du Plessis. Now, with that said, the other fight that was is very, very interesting and absolutely tantalizing coming up very soon in the EFC is Faiz, the troublemaker Jacobs versus Vince, as I like to call him, the bad man Bembe. Now, this fight is very interesting because we've got Vince Bembe fighting in the bantamweight division for the first time. We've seen him crossing multiple weight classes. Vince is an absolute legend in the EFC. He's done featherweight, he's done lightweight, he's won at lightweight, won at featherweight. He's challenged for the featherweight title against Iga Kobesa. Unfortunately, came up short against the GOAT because unfortunately Iga is the GOAT. And I think he's now looking to make his way in the bantamweight division. It's a very, very interesting matchup to have made for the EFC because we've got Faiz Jacobs, former bantamweight champion in the EFC, mind you. He's had gold before, and now he's back to be a double champion in the EFC, looking to further his career. He's only, I think, 28, 29, 30, somewhere there. And he's going up against someone who is a very, very dangerous fighter. Very, very dangerous fighter. We're talking about Vince Bembe, who knocked out our boy, Rayo, Adrian Sanchez, in the most spectacular fashion. Very, very, I mean, Vince absolutely loved the bad man Bembe. So coming up against Faiz, he's definitely going to be tested because Faiz is very experienced. Faiz has been tested with international experience. So to see them coming together to clash in this bantamweight division, of which this is a title shot, mind you, because King Shaka vacated the title. To see them coming together for this title shot, I mean, yes. I think it's a good matchup. Once again, stylistically, very competitive fight. They both like to stand and bang, but they also both do have good ground game. They do know how to wrestle. The jits is there. I think this fight definitely is one that will go down to one of the greatest bantamweight fights in the EFC because this fight is between two very skilled, very hungry, very capable fighters. And I can't wait to see this fight. I'm really, really looking forward to this fight. But let's see what happens. Let's see what the EFC manages to actually get together. Let's see if they have any interest in I guess, interest in what? I don't know. I completely lost myself on that one. But let's see when this fight happens. Let's see which EFC this fight happens at. I'm really looking forward to seeing those fights, Shadrach and Sua versus potentially Luke Michael if Shadrach has his way, but against someone else if Luke Michael has his way, the champ. Then we've also got, of course, the potential of Faiz Jacobs versus Vince Bembe coming up with an EFC very soon. Well, to everyone listening, thank you so much for tongue-tied tonight. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is the Kick in the Head podcast. As you know, you can always find us at Head Kick Pod on all platforms, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. Look out for the Dust Up and Shakedown tomorrow at 10 o'clock South African time. We will be on there. Thursday, we have a special show because Thursday is a very, very, very special day in South African MMA. Because we will be talking about the most special day in South African MMA, the 18th of August, 2024, when Dricus still knocks du Plessis defends his title in Perth, Australia, against the one and only Israel Stylebender Adesanya. This fight has been in the making for some time. It all started when Israel perceived Dricus as having disrespected the Three Kings. If you don't know who the Three Kings are Kamaru Usman, Israel Adesanya, and Francis Ngannou, who were the 3 African champions in the UFC. And Dricus came in and he said, I will be the one and only real African champion in the UFC. And Israel Adesanya took that as disrespect to the 3 kings and has taken it upon himself to right the wrong dealt by Dricus and prove that he is an African champ. He is the African champ in the UFC and definitely in the middleweight division. Now, this fight for me is very personal. I have very personal connections to this fight. Israel Adesanya is a Nigerian who lived in Ghana. I'm a Ghanaian who spent some time and lived in Nigeria. We're both migrants. He moved to Australia. I moved to South Africa. And within that, it gets more personal where the country that I've moved to is where the current UFC middleweight champion is, Dricus du Plessis. So everything Dricus has said, for me, is reality. It is truth. I can drive down the road to Team CIT. I can drive down the road to go and see the gold, go and see Dricus. On a Thursday, they have media days. On Saturdays, they have their open match. You can go and meet Dricus. You can go and touch the title. Everything he said is true. It does sleep under the African sun. You have to come to Africa to see the title. So it's a very personal fight because as much as I fully identify with Israel and where he comes from, I fully identify with the reality that Dricus has spoken. So for me, this fight is absolutely personal. I am absolutely stoked for this fight. I cannot wait to see this fight. It is such a pity that it's not happening on African soil. UFC Africa, hopefully one day will be happening. We know Dana has been talking about UFC Africa, and it's in the works. I don't know which which African state is going to bankroll that because there's no ways that the ticket sales would work, but I could be wrong. Let's see what happens. But UFC Africa hopefully will be happening soon. And at that point, I'm pretty sure Dricus will still be the middleweight champion of the world. And it will be happening somewhere in South Africa. But let's see if that does happen in the near future. But UFC 305 this coming weekend, 18th of August, it's an absolutely fantastic fight card. We have our full show on Thursday, this coming Thursday at the same time, 11 p.m. South African time, CAT, Central African time, at Hectic Pod on YouTube. We will be going in depth into the UFC 305 card and talking specifically about the main event, Dricus Stonox versus Israel Adesanya. It's really, really exciting. We've also got Elisa Kubanza, Elisa King Kong Kubanza is fighting at Brave 85 this coming Saturday as well. So, I mean, it's an absolutely stacked MMA weekend. We love MMA. So don't forget to tune in on Thursday, 11 p.m. South African time, where we'll be going into everything MMA. But until then, don't forget to kick him in the head. That's right, Ayana. King Kong's fighting this Saturday. We are definitely going to be watching. We are definitely going to be talking to him about that fight. So to everyone's name, at Hectic Pod, salute.